This week on 10-Minute Food Truck Training, we have been talking about operational excellence on a food truck.
Here at the Almond Joy Factory, where tropical vibes abound, we use soft, fresh-tasting coconut.
The crunchiest almonds and delicious chocolate candy.
But do you know what our most important ingredient is? Sometimes you feel like a nut.
Sometimes you don't.
Almond Joy's got nuts and something even way better than that. Yes, Almond Joy is made with almonds and joy.
Welcome to the 10-Minute Food Truck Training Podcast. My name is Bill Moore, founder of foodtrucktraining.group. Today we wrap up Operational Excellence Week, and really we've been talking about building manuals all this week. We've been talking about operations manuals, employee manuals, equipment manuals, marketing manuals. All of those are designed to move your business forward. As a quick review, the operations manual defines your recipes and procedures for how you operate. The employee policy manual defines the business expectations and responsibilities of the staff, plus it outlines disciplinary actions, as well as how they can get promoted and how they can make raises. The equipment manual retains all the individual manuals for each piece of equipment, as well as the troubleshooting guides and the preventive maintenance tasks. You also lay out a calendar where it consolidates all of those different individual preventive maintenance tasks so that you can make sure they get performed when they're supposed to be performed. And the marketing manual lays out the specifics of the brand, the social media profiles, and has a list of activities to help drive sales. All of these different manuals add up to you owning a business rather than having a hobby that just happens to make some money. These manuals will be the difference in your business being a success or you just surviving. Because right now, most of you that are listening to me are just starting and you're really wondering to yourself, can I even make money doing this? Survival is opening today to pay bills that are due today, and then having a little tiny bit left over to buy some more food for tomorrow. Failure, and it's a slow walk to failure, is when you open today to pay bills that were due yesterday. And you might have a little bit of money left over to buy some food so you can open tomorrow. Success is opening today to pay bills that are due tomorrow and still having plenty of money left over to pay some of the bills that are due next week, plus buy food for tomorrow. That's success. But this kind of success is a little more than you being an hourly employee. And I hate to break that to you. You're trading the labor of your hands for the cash to live on. If you miss work, you also miss out on sales coming in, which is no different than the job you had before where you missed work, you didn't get paid. If you miss enough days, then you fall back into that survival mode where you're paying bills that are due today with the sales that you generate today. So that's not really a business, is it? All you've done is create a job for yourself. And yes, it's a good job, and you can make lots of money if you know what you're doing, but it's still a job nonetheless. If you're not open, you have no income. And if you're already in survival mode, where you're opening today to pay bills that are due today or that were due yesterday, if you miss a couple of days of work, guess what mode you're into now? You're into failure mode because you're falling farther and farther behind. And that's a stressful way to run a business. Moving beyond success. So if you are at the point where you're paying bills that are due tomorrow from today's sales and paying bills that are due next week from today's sales, that's awesome. But you want to move into creating a legacy for your family, where if you decide not to work today, guess what happens? There's still income being generated. And that income is going to come from the great people that you've hired and trained. Now you've got some freedom. Now you actually have created a business because it runs on its own. And all you do is give it little gentle guidance. And it takes a lot of changes on your part to go from the person that's working hourly, because that's what you're doing when you're a one-man operation, or even if you have a team of 2 or 3 people, you're still working hourly. You're turning in hours to generate sales, to generate income for yourself. It takes a lot of changes on you personally to become a leader, to where you've got 2 trucks in operation. And that means there's people under you that are operating those trucks, because you obviously cannot be in 2 places at once. Even if you're working on one truck, you have to depend on the other people in the other truck to do the job and to do it well. That changes your responsibilities. You can't attain freedom until you're able to take off work and still have income coming in. At that point, you're no longer trading time for money. Every process that I teach you guys, everything that we do on my Facebook group is to get you guys started and to be profitable from day one. Every process that I recommend has a purpose. It's just like wax off, wax on from the Karate Kid. The kid didn't understand why he was going through those motions until Mr. Miyagi showed him what those motions meant. So when I'm telling you to build an ops manual, to build an employee manual, to build an equipment manual, to build a marketing manual, I'm wanting you to be thinking ahead. I'm wanting you to have policies and procedures in place so that when something does come up unexpected, you've got a good idea on how to handle it. Because you may not see or understand why I'm having to do these things, but they've all got a purpose. I'm wanting you to create a business. I'm not wanting you to be an hourly employee that just happens to work for themselves. My dad always used to say, prepare for tomorrow and you'll never have to worry about today. Surviving on daily cash flow is really worse than living paycheck to paycheck, and really nobody should live that way. I want you to think about this. The top tier of food trucks do over $1 million a year in sales. That means they're doing on average a little bit over $19,000 a week. And we're talking about the big food truck companies. Each of the individual trucks can do $1 million, and there are trucks that do over $2 million a year. It is entirely possible. But in order to get to that point, you have to have a plan. You have to create a network. You have to have contacts. You have to have your ear to the ground to the industry. You can't just go out and buy a bunch of food from Walmart, set up on the corner, and start selling. You have to have a plan. And you want to have that plan in place and do all the steps necessary, the wax on, wax off that I'm teaching you guys, so that you can have a business that's viable and that's growable. Because I can promise you, at the point that you think you're ready for a second truck and can hire people to run it, unless you have all these things outlined, how are you going to train them? How are you going to teach them what to do? How are you going to hold them responsible when you're missing food or you're missing money? If you don't have policies and procedures already written and already in place, you're not going to make as much money as possible. If you guys have been paying attention to all the stuff that I do on the group and in the books I write, the courses I do, everything is built from the ground up. I don't start with, I want to do $1 million in sales and then figure out how I'm going to do it. I start with how many people can I get through the line in an hour and what does that equal in sales? And if it doesn't equal enough in sales, then I need to figure out a way to get more people to the business and through that line in an hour. And once I'm able to do that, then I can have whatever amount of sales I want on the top line because I built a strong foundation on the sales per day, the sales per hour, and can build up from there. If you can't build up from there, it's just pie in the sky, crossing your fingers and hoping you can do whatever your sales goal is. You may hit it, you may not. But at least if you plan on doing a certain number of guests an hour that translates into a certain number of dollars per hour, you can monitor that every single hour. If your guest goal is 20 an hour, you know how to get 20 people in. And if you're not hitting 20, you need to figure out how to get 20 in an hour. Because that 20 times whatever your check average is, times whatever number of hours you're open a day, times how many hours you're open a week, ends up to your weekly sales. Multiply that by however many weeks you plan on opening, gives you your annual sales. You build it from the ground up. You build all the policies, all the procedures, all the recipes, all are built from the ground up. And then you can be successful. You can't just sit and go, I'm going to be $1 million a year food truck without the steps to get you from zero, because that's where you're at right now, to $1 million. That's why I have you do the things you do. Next week, I'll be back with a whole new set of topics. If you're enjoying our chats, please consider supporting the podcast by clicking that support button. Every little bit does help. Or if your budget only has room for a one-time donation, I got you covered on that as well. There's a link in the description. If you enjoy being around like-minded, positive people, join our group on Facebook. It's called Food Truck Training. There'll also be a link for that in the description as well. Thank you guys so much for listening, and stay profitable, my friends.